Yeah, good afternoon, y'all. Thanks you for joining us for what is episode 3 of the Designers Without Boundaries podcast. Um, this this episode, we're really focusing in on recognition and really talking about what it's like to represent the underrepresented and the kind of significance of holding these types of spaces. But before that, I think we have some folks who have joined us. I mean, we have professional headshots and formal introductions, but if our recent alumni can just do a quick hi and share perhaps their name and when they graduated from EVD, that would be great. And I think, Josh, if you could start us off, that would be great. Oh, he jumped back into the call. Maddie, could you start us off?
Oh, sure. So yeah, my name is Maddie Costello. I graduated in 2019. I was co-president with Dan of DWB and currently working on starting my own business, Mad Studio. So yeah, that's about where I'm at.
Josh, go ahead, or anybody else?
I can start.
Awesome, please.
Hi, my name is Dan Liu. I was a co-chair with Maddie in 2018 and 2019. I was a marketing person before that, so I've been with DWB for a while. And yeah, I'm really glad to be part of it. And I graduated in 2019 with an architecture degree, and I'm recently getting ready to get into graduate school, actually. So that's what I've been doing.
Sarah, if you would like to go next.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Sarah Takatatsu. I graduated from ENVD in 2019 as well. A lot of 2019 people here. And I was a DWB scholarship recipient starting my sophomore year. So went to all the events, got my requirements in row, and also had a really great time as part of DWB. Currently, I am in Washington, D.C., serving as the incoming Vice President of the American Institute of Architecture Students.
Thank you, Sarah. All right, who does that leave us with?
I can go next.
All right.
Hi, my name is Anne, and I was a part of DWB since sophomore year as well, I think for 3 years. And I love DWB. It was such a great community. I was part of the board for all 3 years, and I graduated in 2019 as well. And right now I'm working full-time at LOA Architecture in Denver, but I'll be moving soon to St. Louis, Missouri for grad school at WashU.
That's awesome. All right, and I think last but not least, we have done.
I think that's me. Sorry, I was having technical difficulties with my other laptop, so I had to switch to my work laptop. But yeah, I'm Joshua Magianis. I was DWB executive chair from 2016 to 2018 when I graduated. And I currently work as an architectural drafter at BSB Design. And yeah, I think I covered all of it. I don't know.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. So yeah, thanks for that. I'm currently trying to present a PowerPoint slides, and I'm having some difficulty in terms of how it shows up. So I'm going to go into presenter mode, and then I'm going to share my screen, and let me know if it's really small. So let's see. How's that? Still small, right?
Yeah, it is.
Oh, man. All right. I think we're just going to go off of not full screen and go from there, and I'll zoom in. We're going to make this work. Let's share this screen, my screen again.
Graphics are supplemental. We'll be talking most of the time.
Okay. Awesome. Cool. So we have that up. I think just something to refer to. So this is an overview of what this podcast entails. Is just like open conversation and a space for recognition. Foremost, this podcast started from, kind of a remote learning environment and say, how can we adapt to that and make it, the conversations that we have within DWB accessible and invite more folk into that. And in light of what we've seen in terms of social political movements and, all these things have always been there, but now we're seeing, currently seeing what some might say is, the largest civil rights movement ever. But we're just living it. We're not reading it in a textbook, right? So we want to create, and be responsive to that, and we've seen that a lot. So yeah, it's DWB foremost is a learning community and a scholarship program specifically for underrepresented students. And the learning community component, when I mention that, it's to talk about social issues in design within EMVD and within the profession and the industry entirely, because the impact of design are tremendous, and it's things that we see all the time and we research on, and we constantly ask ourselves where we're at in terms of the industry. So one thing we're going to talk about is just this importance of underrepresented recognition. From there, we're going to go into, a brief historical case study. We're going to talk about current leaders in the industry, and sorry to our DWB alum, but we've saved you for last, the best for last, of course. And we have a couple conversation topics we'll talk about there. So without further ado, I'm going to go to my next screen here. This recognition is not just something of a courtesy, it's an act, and some might call it, a political act. And the reason why, I brought this and highlighted this is because it's an action in terms of two things that sound great for, at first it's exposure. So a lot of times folk are doing amazing work, or their identities need to be, exposed. It's inspirational in that it encourages folks of similar underrepresented backgrounds to kind of take on that mantle. But also we have a couple of seditious things that we're acting against, where we see a lot of censure of people's legacies. So, for example, some might say Martin Luther King is a great, historical figure. He was all kind. But, if you really dig back into history, he was very much, someone who's critical of the government, who's critical of, social conditioning. He's someone who was arrested and in prison. And at the time he was absolutely vilified for it. So it's important to recognize those legacies that oftentimes are whitewashed, or what some might call whitewashed, or and the last point, entirely erased. Cool. So I'm going to go into our historical case study. So we really had a lot to work with in terms of looking at different designers, but we wanted to start off with one specific individual, particularly in the lens of higher education. We're looking at Julian Abele. Correct me if I'm wrong on that pronunciation, but in his historical example, he was a Black architect designer of Duke University, which at the time was a whites-only institution, not a predominantly white institution, but a whites-only, pretty much until 1961. So Julian actually died in the 1950s. So he designed an institution that he could not even set foot in until after his death, right? AIA recognized him, American Institute of Architects recognized him in 1942. Duke finally recognized his work and contributions to their university and their institution until 1986, and this was predominantly through student organizing and protests at the time, heavily involved around the Black Student Alliance at Duke. So I just want to put this out there, and I'm tired of hearing myself talk. What are our reactions or questions, and are there any other historical figures that we should discover or rediscover as we kind of learn in this process?
Don't be shy, guys.
Yeah, I lectured a lot for like pretty much the first 10 minutes, but please do go ahead.
I can react. I think it's really hard to keep context in mind when you're thinking of historical figures. and context in how it impacts our lives today, where this is not just a historical figure, a black and white photo. This was someone who lived and had life experiences and had a vibrant life, just like you and me, but thinking about empathy and being able to be empathetic to people who are who we only see as black and white photos can be really difficult. So, you know, what did 1961 look like? What did 1942 feel like? It can be really hard to be as taken aback. You know, this stuff isn't surprising, but it should still hurt. And I think that's some of my reactions to a lot of these kind of re-education efforts that we're trying to process right now, of, you know, looking at historical figures, but not just learning the facts and not just learning the tidbits, but trying to understand what they went through and what it means to preserve their legacy today, and talking about the human experience of being persecuted and not included.
Yeah, I definitely agree with Sarah. And I think it's that whole idea of like creating that legacy. And as designers, a lot of the times, like, it's hard because you do need to think for the future, not just the present. So I think that's something that you can always kind of like bring back as you're doing things in your current roles, no matter what we're doing. But, you know, it's not always, you're not going to get like that like feedback or recognition right away. You got to think like, all right, am I changing the future for other people? So yeah. I like your point, Sarah.
I feel like so we went to a lot of museums in DC a year ago to see the history, and then seeing, you know, the first the bus that that was banning Black people to get into and those kind of things. But like, I don't feel like the emotional attachment until recently. I watched these shows called Watchmen on HBO, and then they talk a lot about the first Black cop in the US, or in some history about Tulsa. And then I started feeling like it was really, it really hurt me when I see the show, because there is so much context and there is so much damage to the people and to the history. So I feel like that kind of visual representation gave me a more like a more heavier impression, I guess. And
Yeah, thank you, Brad. I think now you mentioned Watchmen, I don't want the rest of this conversation to be about Watchmen, but it could be. It's that good of a show. I think there's just, you know, so much rich history that oftentimes we forget, because in a lot of ways our education system only sets up to represent a certain type of historical narrative. And even then, when it's about the diverse folk in these historical narratives, it's very much a limited take on their legacy. And so I'm sure, other than the articles that have been released about Julian, you know, his presence and his time and his time in getting his education as an architect, there's so much more that we can learn and hasn't been tapped into yet. So that being said, I think learning and in that process, unlearning too, is going to be a big part of bringing these folks' real legacies to light. And it's going to keep on going for decades after this.
And adding on to this, seeing the time frame between 1942 and 1986, that's nearly 20 years, which is crazy how long it took for, you know, Duke University to actually recognize Julian. And the crazy part was through student protests, which just shows that, you know, students have a lot of power in their voices, and that it doesn't have to be from higher up. We have a lot of say to what we present, what we showcase in our campuses.
Yeah, I think we get caught up in a lot of historical legacies are forgotten entirely, but a lot of communities hold on to them. Underrepresented communities hold on to historical legacies, but those aren't part of like the common narrative, right? So it really does take some community organizing and advocacy to bring these to a general audience. And there's a lot of ways to do that, whether it's, you know, research, articles, social media or an entire HBO. I mean, we've been seeing a lot of that.
And to piggyback off that, that's how you kind of get everyone to, I don't know, relive their ancestry, just by storytelling, just being able to get the truth, or giving the disadvantaged the voice of each historical event, and just getting the perspectives that are never ever really discovered until, this situation is through student protest, or once the people or the younger generations are given the tools to actually use their knowledge or highlight their ancestry, is really when other people are able to see the misfortunes that society has put on everyone.
Thank you. Is there any other comments? Are there any other folks that we've kind of rediscovered in our own inquiries, or doing our own type of research or readings that everyone would like to know about? Yeah, Victor. Cool.
Yeah, if you want to go to that slide that I inserted, we could just jump on there and then start the conversation based off that one slide. But I recently, so obviously just related back to the whole thing of education and stuff, I feel like education obviously is the foundation to everything else that stems into what is the architecture field. So, and kind of finding my spot, or even within ourselves, envisioning ourselves within the field is sometimes hard when we're just taught the same white male over and over again. So that's what kind of sparks that initial initiative, I believe, within all of us to seek out those different architects and designers that can relate to our backgrounds, our struggles. So I just wanted to share this article just to start off the conversation. I'll send it in the group chat, but it's pretty much the picture that you're seeing right now on the screen. It's part of the article. It's a total of 16 architects that were featured, and they talk about race within the design field. If you've read the article before, feel free to add on to it, but they pretty much just highlight all the issues they've encountered. And I know one of the things that was mentioned too, I forget her name exactly, I'll have to go back and look, but she said that she was having just such a hard time finding work and stuff that she's just you know what, I'm tired of this, I'm just gonna go ahead and start my own practice in my own firm. And I feel like that's a good motive, but at the same time, that's sad that sometimes you can't really continue the culture for some of the firms you might be working for, and have to go on to your own journey and create it. And that's kind of the disadvantage that people of color have sometimes. And yeah, I just wanted to share that to start off the conversation on this piece.
Yeah. You said something really important about, representation, and, how a lot of places that you might start off at don't give you that platform, and you ultimately have to create your own space. That is something that, we see often, and folks trying to struggle to create that space or find that. But I think one important thing, and it's something that I've had a conversation with Nate, who, professional development services, assistant director, and myself, is the work and our passion in social equity is something that we should go to employers with. To represent where I think we get oftentimes caught up with, and in particular, this is a challenge, for a positive challenge for DWB. I want to challenge y'all to do is as we go out into the work, we put in a lot of passion and during our time, and I'm sure the alumni can speak to it too, as they were in ENVD. But sometimes we get caught in the nuance of, we want to be professional, or we want to match the type of working culture within certain type of architecture firms. So I think it's a balancing act. A lot of folks have the privilege of not ever having to worry about, the social equities being key, or their identities being key to how they show up in the workplace. But for us, being underrepresented students of color, first generation, coming from low income backgrounds, it's something that's integral and a lot of times motivates our work. So going back to what the conversation me and Nate had, is we want to see folks apply that social equity and their exposure and their experiences and their research into their portfolios, and go to folks like, yeah, when I was during my time at EMVD, worked on a lot of social equity issues, and this is what I'm passionate about. And if there's projects or this is something you stand for, I'd really like to join your firm. And if they don't take you and they reject you, then perhaps that's not somewhere that was ideal, if that's how you present yourself. So I think there's just things to balance there. But yeah, that was a great topic, and I wanted to add that as an addition to the conversation being had now.
I want to add something to this. So I talked to someone who went through some interview with a company, and they were talking about whether the interviewer should ask for what they really want. For example, sometimes they want to see how's the work-life balance for a certain job. And people were thinking maybe as a beginner to trying to step your foot into the firm, you shouldn't ask about it because they might think that you're just trying to be lazy. But I think through a lot of conversation with a lot of different professionals, I learned that it's okay to ask. And if they decided they don't want to accept you, or they don't want to give you the freedom to have a really wholesome working environment, then you shouldn't work for them. And I think it's the same for the if the firm doesn't value the people of color, then I don't think you should accept them as your work environment. And I think that's pretty true. It's a mutual way of relationship. It's not just the employees picking you. You also need to pick the employers.
That's a great point. Yeah.
And I actually want to circle back to recognizing some current designers that are minorities. And I think one person is Dee Nichols. She's actually the co-organizer for Design as Protest. And so she's an activist, but she's also a designer. And she's doing some great work right now, so that I think people should check her out. Another person is Brian Lee Jr. He's also a architect too, and he does some activist work. And I follow both of them on Instagram, so you guys should check their Instagram profiles. And then Jermaine Barnes is actually the second picture in the slide right now. He's the one on the top left, and he's doing some work with Shaheen Rubari actually. And they're issuing an issue called Vigilantism with Mass Context, and that's going to be happening in January. So that's really exciting. And then there are some other licensed architects, Black women architects, such as Pascal Sablan and Danny Cesario and Renee Kemp-Rotain. And so I'll definitely put those contacts in the chat box for people to reference.
Awesome, thank you. Yeah, social media is a great place to capture. I found DWB on Instagram, and then I just went down a rabbit hole. It was Descent, then it was Descent by Design, and I just followed a whole bunch of folks just to see what they're working on, and make that relevant to the work being done. And my work on the diversity inclusion, committee and task force, DWB, advising even. So. I mean, this is not just designing. This is kind of a overall issue of how we educate our future designers, right? So, yeah, keep sending those out, and yeah, that's correct. Okay.
I think piggybacking off of what Anne said, I've followed on Jermaine Barnes a lot. I really like his work, and then a lot of the designers on this screen. I read this article and it's super interesting, just kind of circling back to it. But I think it's important to realize that we're finally going to be in an era where we actually see these people's work done. I feel like in the past, we've been kind of robbed of so much ingenuity and ideas and just, beautiful designs that we were robbed of because a lot of, the profession doesn't have a lot of diversity in the past. And we've been limited to a single demographic of kind of design, which obviously, we realize that's bad. But I think it's exciting that now we're finally going to start seeing like these designs in real life, like not just a portfolio, but like being done physically, which I think is super exciting and just like such a great thing.
Yeah, I just have something to add too. I just wonder, and since we have some alumni here, I was just kind of curious, were these designers maybe part of your curriculum? Were they part of your discussions through your education? Or like, do you wish you had learned more about some of these great people a little bit earlier on? Kind of what I'm wondering.
I can jump in here and not to be too crass about it. I definitely was never educated on these designers, the history of racism in architecture, and I think we had some courses that gave us the ability to think critically about architecture's past, but I don't think there was specific education on celebrating these architects, these designers, I should say. And I think to the kind of going back to our original person who we were highlighting, Julian Abel, you know, it took 20 years for him to get recognized by Duke, but does that actually do anything if our architecture students aren't being educated on the fact that you can see this architecture right now, and the impact of our curriculum can't be overstated. And I think it's a tragedy that it isn't incorporated into all education programs for designers across the US as it should be. And I think ENVD has a long way to go, and I think all architecture programs in the US have a long way to go. But I am really excited to hear that there are schools in the US that the student body is actively participating in protesting their curriculum and working with their schools to create curriculums that are actually helpful to understand this world that we live in and to create a more equitable future. And so can't overstate the importance of student voice in talking about what you need in your curriculum.
Yeah, thank you, Sarah. That's kind of where I was going in that direction. That I think just from the conversations, like it sounds like these people, you know, these identities are not being represented to their full potential within students. So it's really like kind of sad that it's almost like sometimes like in design education, it's very like Europeanized, like it's like surrounded around like European architecture and like history and culture, and I wish that like this was more incorporated into the curriculum so that students starting their freshman year can start learning about some of these great designers.
Right.
Yeah, we have to get away from the fact that colleges are based upon, or even our education system is based upon the privilege of learning about the founders or the people that colonized the land, and just being able to have our ancestry or our stories implemented at the same time. We're learning each points of history and just making sure that our education or things that make us the best we can be are coming from different roots and not the same as our European counterparts or anything like that. So,
Yeah, I think Sarah brought up a good point of, is recognition enough? And certainly it's not. You have to integrate these folks and go back to them. And we see this all the time is we celebrate diversity, but do we, speak it? Do we breathe it? But I think in this narrative and the point of the podcast is to push back against who we usually celebrate or who usually gets most of the platform to be recognized, kind of push it back this narrative, this like old boys club or this style that, these are are prominent, elite of architecture, or design. I'm saying there's other people doing phenomenal work, better work in a lot of ways. that and that are recognized only half as much of what others have been able to do. So I think as we have identified and celebrate right now, I think we need to go forward and just keep asking ourselves, asking ourselves where we can learn. If we can't find it in certain spaces, then we look at others and draw on the tremendous resources that we have with some of our faculty members and alumni. So, yeah. Does anyone have anything else to say on our contemporary designers? Is there? I know Victor, kind of exposed me to a lot of these by just pointing them out on social media. Is there any other good place for those who might watch in later? Any other good place to find kind of where the collective efforts of these folks are being presented out? No.
So Roberto, do you mean like NOMA, for example?
Yeah.
I feel like as long as you're, I guess, active, you could say on like the social media platforms, you will just be in the loop on all of these. Honestly, that's how I find out about new designer like almost every day, and their work. It's just like they all loop each other and stuff. So I feel like as long as you're consistent, I feel like with the link I just shared, that's a really good way of just starting, and then following them on there. And I could also find that list of the 16 Black architects you should be following right now too, to send. But as long as you're active, it'll be straight.
I think a good starting point, breaking the fourth wall here, but you should follow DWB on Instagram. Shameless plugin.
I did just want to say something real quick in regards to NOMA. I think NOMA is amazing, but it almost feels that like sometimes students have to go through NOMA, like especially like architecture students, to learn about some of these designers and their experiences. It's kind of like you either go through NOMA to learn about them or you don't learn about them. And I just wish that those kind of conversations and topics were just more integrated into our everyday language and conversations.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. All right. So, as I said before, last but not least, I wanted to take a moment to recognize the folks, the recent DWB alumni who have joined us, and invite them, not a panel, but just invite them a conversation about how we inspire or what we can do to better represent folks. So I'm going to go down first, start off with Maddie Costello. It's a DWB alumni. Maddie, could you remind us when you graduated from EMBD? It's 2019, right?
Yeah, 2019 architecture. I just graduated.
Thank you. So, as the CEO and owner of Mad Studio, do you have a social media plugin you want to give?
Yeah, you guys can be like one of my 10 followers. It's just, I think it's Maddie _ studio. Yeah, Mad Studio.
Awesome. So. I hate to ask more, but what is some of the things that you kind of focus on and implement?
Oh, I'm sorry, you kind of broke up there. Oh, yeah. What were you saying?
Yeah, what are some of the kind of projects and work that you've done since you started this?
Yeah, so it looks a lot cooler on that slide than it is right now. But so I worked at RAP Architecture and Planning in Boulder for a bit before transitioning into this. And I am currently working on kind of more like permit type stuff, construction docs for some houses in Boulder. But I think my goal right now is just kind of like combining my design nerdiness with my love for architecture and kind of seeing where that takes me. It's not really like a super solidified thing right now, but kind of just like, seeing where it goes. I'm taking on some like different little projects here and there. So trying to build up that clientele list slowly but surely. But yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting what we were talking about earlier as far as like, finding an employer that you feel comfortable with and you feel like, your identity is represented and things like that. And I had no issue with that at my previous position. I mean, I do like what Dan was saying. Like, I definitely agree when you're looking into, you know, working for a firm, you should make sure that you feel like you're a good fit there too. Don't just like take whatever comes your way, which, you know, when I was looking for internships in ENVD, that's a struggle that I definitely had, because I was like, I just need to take whatever work I can get here and there. But it does come down to, you know, it's your passion and you want to be happy every day. So you should feel like they appreciate, you know, who you are. But so, I mean, it's definitely lonely right now just because it's just me at Matt's studio, but hopefully in the future I can expand and, you know, get a lot of different identities and kind of have that sort of DWB kind of vibe, like, you know, everyone's represented. But yeah, that's what it is. Mm-hmm.
We're like excited to see what, you know, is ahead for your firm.
Yeah, me too. I definitely listened to The Climb by Miley Cyrus a few times, because it's not the easiest thing, but it's definitely, I mean, so far it's already paying off. So yeah, if anyone, I guess, in DWB or in the future in ENVD have questions about it, hopefully I could help them as far as the back end of trying to start a business, since I wasn't super familiar with it.
Yeah, that's a big jump, and that's inspirational to a lot of folks who probably watch this online. So thanks, man.
Thank you.
All right. Going forward, we have Sarah Taketatsu. She is the National Vice President for the American Institute of Architecture Students, and I think you put this in picture with former West Quad director. So yeah, I just want to hear perhaps a bit of where you're at before, you know, AIA, and then of course just a few things of what you do.
Sure. Yeah. Maddie, I think your mic is catching some feedback. All good. Okay. I am so excited about my current / very new job. So a little bit of my history: graduating from ENVD in 2019, and then went to work at a firm in Boulder, which was a really great experience to work full-time at an architecture firm, and definitely solidified an understanding of what I do want to do in the future, which was a great transition to, I was working full-time at an architecture firm while serving as the West Quad director this past year, which has been a phenomenal joy, getting to talk to the ENVD chapter of AIS, as well as 30 or 40 chapters throughout Western United States, and talking about the future of architecture. And now kind of getting to do that full time as my full paying job in DC is super cool. Been transitioning in this month. So been in the office, at home, and in the office, figuring out this new job, which is a lot of responsibility, but really exciting to be able to be on the front lines of representing student voice. And it's to Maddie's point, and to a lot of other people's points, of looking at employment that makes you feel like you're in the right spot for your values and your interests. And, you know, for example, the AIS published their promise to communities of color on June 3rd, pretty quick off the jump compared to some of the other national organizations for architecture, and coming out really strong and saying that, you know, we recognize that architecture is inseparable from racism, saying communities of color, that we're going to work hard to find representation and work towards equity and justice in architecture. And so getting to do that as my full-time job has been already really fulfilling in a way that I haven't felt fulfilled before. So I'm really excited to keep doing this work. And, you know, for example, Victor is an AIS advocate. So he's part of a program that's bringing his voice, and he's going to be podcasting for us as well, and bringing his voice to the table to a national platform to get students' voices heard, to get professionals who have, you know, as we say, like, we're not celebrating these people enough. So Victor is going to be part of the front lines as well, bringing that to a national audience. And those things are so important to meeting the moment, but not just meeting the moment, you know, carrying on the torch of architecture students and thereby the architecture profession. So couldn't have done it without all the experiences I had at DWB, ENVD, and really happy to have this community that we can still come back to and talk about where we're all at. It's really exciting.
Awesome. Thank you. Is my audio coming a bit better? All right.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Sarah. Yeah, for next we have Joshua Magallanes. So he is a current architectural drafter at BSB Design. You mind giving us a bit of context into what you do and perhaps a little bit of your time, what's happened since you graduated from ENVD?
Ooh, so much stuff has happened. So yeah, I graduated, or technically, yeah, it's a weird story. So technically, I graduated May 2018 from EMED, but I still had a Hota's class to take, and then I still had my dual degree with business operations to get through, and I didn't know I had a lot of credits to do, so I ended up graduating in December 2018 from that program leads. And also from that, I kind of overwhelmed myself and kind of overdid it with all these courses, because I took a full load in summer courses, taking 15 credits, then taking 18 credits in the fall semester. So I was kind of done, like even the thought of getting a job post-graduation was in my back of my mind. I was like, you know what, I just need to take the first offer, which, I mean, it was bittersweet because I did unfortunately get into the oil and petroleum natural gas industry as a drafter. And I got that through a family friend or my girlfriend's brother. And I mean, in my mind, I was like, any experience is good experience. But when I came, so I got laid off because of all the fracking and oil standards and all that. I mean, which is a good thing, because I just promised myself whatever job I got first, if I didn't like it or I liked it, I just needed to get that first year in, so employers would just see that I got that 1 year experience and they know that I could stick to a decision I made early on. And from that, I got laid off in February of 2020, right before COVID happened, which is a blessing in disguise, because I was currently looking for a new position. And then after that, I was able to find or land a position as architectural drafter at BSB Design, which is right in the Denver office, is working primarily with multifamily homes and duplexes and such like that. And they're trying to, the interview kind of went both ways. As Dan said earlier, is trying to look for a good fit for yourself. And what really stuck out for me for BSB Design is, although they're a national design firm, which I didn't really want to go into, but they did highlight that they wanted me to grow within the industry or become an architect, and they would pay pretty much all the way to get me a licensure and ensure that all my goals will be fulfilled within the next, the time frame I stay there. And they're just trying to make sure that I'm a part of their family. And from that, and a lot of other things in my life happened. But yeah, so far so good. And also in college, I was a part of Designers Without Boundaries and Diverse Scholars Program through the Leeds School of Business, which kind of was difficult for myself because DSP from Leeds School did not, there's the same concepts through business that try to match. I'm not trying to disown them, but they're the same purpose, was to get people with difficult backgrounds or not traditional backgrounds for CU Boulder students and put them in the same program and help them communicate. But first day off the bat versus DWB, I was not as welcomed in the DSP community because it felt like more of a clique, and as of DWB, it felt more of a family. And I told the lead counselor, which was Valeria or Ruby at the time, and I told her, I was like, this is kind of why I don't like the DSP program at Leeds versus the DW program, because the student, the student presence wasn't as welcoming to anyone, like a new face. They were welcome to a new face, and that's why I really highlight DWB when I talk to friends or say what I did in college. Is they're really welcoming to, any characteristics, anything. It doesn't matter matter who you are, what you are, with anything like that. And they're just way welcoming. And also, I really love that I was a part of the pre-collegiate program, which really allowed me to give back to the younger generations, because I mean, with the pre-collegiate program, they're really a pathway to the collegiate or college means of education. And I was able to tour and be a panel almost every other day, or at least twice a week, through, I mean, EC to 12th grade. And it was really a fun time, because the variety of backgrounds and variety of students, and just the questions from each grade level were just, you hear every single questions you have to hear about college. And I mean, honestly, it's just being honest to someone that, I mean, you can see in their eyes if they're trying to be, you know, really understanding of, like, they really don't know those questions. I mean, at first it might seem like they're trying to make a joke out of it, but you could tell in their eyes that they're actually trying to know this answer, because they know that you'll answer professionally and with all the knowledge and background that you can be. And hopefully I'm doing more in my community, as like, especially with this movement. And we are actually living with one of the biggest civil rights movement for not only the Black Lives Matters community or like movement, but also it's highlighting other people of depression or oppression, and just using all this fire to just keep it going and making sure that our voices are always heard and will be amongst the greats in the future. Yeah.
Thank you for all that. I'm pretty sure I recall you at some point, and then you said that giving a tour, because I also used to give tours to students, but it was just for a different office. So like, life comes full circle. Look at us now. Yeah. Anyways, on a side note, thanks for the contributions. I think going forward, we have Dan Liu, who is a prospective graduate student at the CU Boulder Engineering program. So similar, Dan, if you could just give us, you know, a bit of what's happened, a bit of your accomplishments and some challenges since you've, you know, gone from undergrad at EMUD and now heading towards grad school. That would be great.
Hi, I'm Dan again. I graduated from CU Boulder in 2019, and I was very fortunate that I got a lot of job offer after graduation. And then, but honestly, it was like the most stressful time in my life, honestly, during that time period, because I don't, many of you knows that I'm an international student. So that means I've been giving a really, really short period of time to find a job. I have a really scary deadline right there waiting for me. So I started my interview back in February in 2019. And I went through a process of having maybe around 4 interviews or 5 interviews per week on top of all of my seniors schoolworks. So it's really stressful, but luckily I got a job in Denver area after I graduated as a lighting designer. And the job was really awesome because it was a medium-sized firm. I got exposed to a lot of technology, and I always know that myself knowing how to use Revit, but when I get into the firm, I was like, well, this is a brand new word. We have a lot of, you know, in-house Revit program that we designed, and it was honestly kind of intimidating to see those things at first, because I used to teach people how to use Revit, but when I got to the firm, I feel like I was such a newbie for the Revit program. And there were just so many people, so many programs to learn. And so I ended up learning so much during the work there. But then during the work there, I actually decided to explore a little bit more of the technical side of the design part. So when I was working there, I actually was applying for graduate school at the same time. And then I want to expose myself a little bit more to the technical side of the designing. And I was talking to this professor at the TAM program. I actually worked with him during my senior year. Thanks to Shaheen. Shaheen introduced me to this really awesome professor, Danielle, and we've been talking since then. And he invited me to join his class with Parsons Design School that he's going to be teaching this semester. So I'm really excited about that. And I think for me, it's not like I'm trying to leave the design field, or I think I see this as more like expanding of my skill sets and my knowledge, because I'm pretty much in love with design. I feel like I see a lot of potential of having design and the technology connecting together and making a better solution to the world and to the people. So that's something I really want to do. And I figure out I'm really passionate of educations and a lot of environmental stuff, because every day I've seen this world burning and flooding, and I'm just really concerned, and I hope that I can use my skill set and my knowledge to help better the world.
Thank you. You're
I know. I got that down. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing, Dan. And I think you were one of the first DWB alumni I had met, when I started back in November. So thanks for coming again and being around and being a resource for everybody. Yeah, so last we have Ann Dang. She's a job captain designer at LOA Architecture, Denver. If you don't mind, Ann, kind of explaining a bit of what's happened since ENVD, and if you don't mind, I know you're on the Design by Design kind of initiative with Shaheen. Just a bit of context on that, so folks can know, and we can hold a space for that work on this podcast here.
Yeah, I'm Ann, and I actually worked at LOA in senior year. So I actually started as an intern for a year, and then I started full-time after I graduated. And to be honest, I didn't really know what to expect. I was working in a small firm that at the time had only 5 other people. There was one stay-at-home mom, and then the rest of them were men, white men. And so I was experiencing some, they were talking about inappropriate jokes to me, and there were things that I felt I was kind of mistreated in the beginning. And I think that was really strange, because I came from, CU Boulder and ENVD, where it was such a welcoming environment. And, I wasn't very conscious of my gender or my race, so much to the point where, when I actually started at this firm, I found those things. But I think I gathered that courage, and then I confronted my boss and my coworkers, and they did change for the better. And they did treat me a lot better afterwards. It did take a couple of times, but now I can see that they do respect me to a certain level, and then they see me as a professional, which I think was very valuable to me. And during that time, that really fostered what I had to reflect on what I wanted to do with architecture, and like what I wanted to do with my career. And that just kind of showed me, like how Victor was saying, I just want to start my own firm, because I've seen how it works. I've seen how the industry works, and I just want to, change it up and, implement the things that I want to see in an equitable firm into mine. And currently I'm working with Shaheen and Ana Quinones, who's also an ENVD alumni. And we're working on Descent by Design. And Descent by Design, it was started as a, we went to New York actually with Fernando, and we got to we went to some conferences. And through that, we had some research that we did with race and gender in architecture. We were just observing what was happening in the spaces, and then creating a free-form booklet of poetry about our experiences. And that actually turned into a panel discussion in Seattle at AIS Forum. And then that also expanded to the Frames exhibit, where we were showing how architecture perpetuates racism in design. And so that actually was in February 2020. And so now we've created an Instagram, which is Descent X Design, which I can put in the chat. But through that, we're just trying to, show our research and just share it to everybody on that platform, since it reaches out to more than just designers on social media. And then right now, I recently got a full ride fellowship to go to grad school at WashU, which is a really exciting accomplishment that I didn't think I would actually get it, but here we are. So I'm really excited to start that in August or September. And I want to continue my research with racism in design and just with getting a master's in architecture.
Yeah, thank you for all the context there, and congratulations, Anna. Definitely keep us in mind when you're doing big things and in grad school, and please let DWB know how we can access fellowships like that, because that's a big component of grad school. Is a big jump. First generation folk, graduating with the bachelor's is a lot, and oftentimes, as a faculty member, we'll say like, well, have you considered grad school? And then all of a sudden you just on this trail again, and you feel like you're square one again. So definitely want to hear more about that as you progress and enter your program. So yeah, you'll be a guest again probably at some point. Sorry, shameless plug-in. So yeah, we're kind of getting at time right now, but I do want to hold 5 minutes or so, if everyone minds staying on a bit longer, if that's okay, to kind of really have a conversation. Now that we kind of recognizes what can ENVD students do, with their identities and their interests regarding diversity and inclusion, and enhance their professional development goals. And I think a lot of you have already shared that in your narratives about things you've done, or, specifically in these professional spaces, calling out, negative, oppressive racist behavior, creating your own opportunities. So is there a bit of more of a discussion or things we can do? And then last part, and we're not going to do it one by one, but just an overall discussion, is how to inspire and represent the next generation of what I consider, or what we all consider, DWB heroes, rather than being role models as a heroes, and that we're doing a lot, and our work is inspirational. And we recently had worked with high schoolers for the Geta Summer Program, and thanks to you so much for doing that. We also had a conversation with an incoming freshman recently, and we've encouraged those folks to look at our podcast. So if they were to watch this, these, incoming freshmen or high school students further on, what are some things that, that we could be doing to help inspire them and build that designer kind of mindset in them right now? So just leave it out there, and we'll take about, maybe until 1:06, and we'll call it good.
If you don't mind, I'll jump in here because I do have to run. But I think we have been talking about a lot of this in the conversation, and it's really exciting to hear everyone else's experiences and know that we're all doing the work in our own ways. And it's really inspiring already just to hear this. And I think that goes to the point of how do we inspire and represent the next generation. It is about not being afraid to be visible, as much as we want to call out the bad actors and the people who are making it harder for underrepresented groups to be seen. It is on us as well to be visible, to go the extra mile. It's not fair and it's not right, but being unafraid to take up the mantle and be strong in who you are is more than enough already. But it is really powerful to be seen and to represent yourself in a way that you want the world to look, because that's really when we talk about kind of the pipeline of architecture, which is what I'm more familiar with, but design in general. We do need to see ourselves, as younger people too, we want to see and need to see ourselves in our leaders. And the big divide in what the data shows us is that we're not seeing ourselves. We're not even seeing women in leadership in design. We have to work really hard. We have to work the extra to just be seen. But that is the work that we can do to elevate each other, especially. I just went in and followed all those Instagram accounts, so I hope everyone else is too. But do the work to be a mentor yourself. even if you think that you're the one who needs mentoring, you're already in the pipeline just by nature of you listening to this. So very proud of everyone's work and really inspired to see my peers doing so well. And one more point on how we can enhance our own personal professional development. Find mentors. Don't hesitate to reach out to myself, to anyone on this call. Be really forthcoming with what advice you want, need, shoulder to cry on, anything like that. We all need to support each other because it's really hard work, and there are barriers already put in place that we have to overcome, and talk to the people who have overcome those barriers and how they did it, because you will have a lot of work to do, but there's people who can help you at least be there emotionally, and if not, be part of your professional network. So there's a lot of things that you can do, of course, but that's one that I would definitely plug, especially as this is what we're doing right now, is creating that network and developing those ties. So, you know, if you're in a space where you're influencing others, also look to see who can be influencing you and helping you along the way. And I really appreciate having this chance to talk to everyone. I'm going to log off right now, but thank you for doing this work, Victor and the ENVD team, and it's great to see you all. Bye.
Thank you so much, Sarah. Okay. So I think one of the things I would say that in terms of inspiring is to make design accessible. Because and just like we think that, you know, what the work we do in DWB or social equity work doesn't make things accessible for the professional or real world, it actually does. So I think one thing we did in our community service, we said everyone is a designer. You don't have to have a degree from ENVD or any design school to be a designer. So I think creating like opportunities for folks to engage and practice is a really important component to that. Yeah, I think we still have a bit of time for folks to share. How are we feeling about that?
I'll tell you, alumni.
Okay. Well, Fernando doesn't even log out. Let's see here.
I feel like from what I understand and from my personal, I would say that we all need to be all need to know the resource around you, and then use those resources to make yourself more, make people hear your voice. Because and I will say, don't be shy to reach out to people, because that's what I've been doing. It's kind of like a weird story of mine, but I was looking at this YouTube tutorial online, and I find a person really related to me because she had the same background or architecture, and then she decided to jump into the tech field, and she's doing pretty well and everything. So I saw that experience her. I was pretty inspiring, and I reached out to her and I said, can I have your personal contact? And she agreed. And now I have her personal contact, and I learned a ton from her. So I would say, definitely don't be shy to reach out to people. And I would say, think of your personal culture and your experience as an advantage. Because I think, for example, because I know how to speak Mandarin or I know how to write Chinese, I can have a dual language in my portfolio. And I think that's really attractive point for the viewers to see that. And yeah, and then I saw some really cool artists in New York. They actually incorporate their own culture, like Vietnamese culture or like Chinese culture, and they coordinate that with the design, and then make it really powerful message to people, to remind them of the history, and remind them of their food, and remind them of their festivals and everything. And I think that's a really cool thing to do.
Good point, Stan. I also have to log off in a little bit, but just a quick point is, personally, I'm I was looking into giving back to the programs that have given back so much in my past or my elementary, middle school, high school career, and I can't name all of them right now, but one in particular is Minds Matter that I'm looking to be a mentor and just being present in the minds of maybe you never know who you'll run into, or just being a role model in some students' eyes, just saying that if you can make it in this position, maybe anything I think of is possible. And yeah, thank you for having me, and bye.
Yeah, take care, Josh.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I think with Josh logging off, I think we're at a good point where we covered a lot. I know we're about 10 minutes over, so thank you so much for staying on the call, but I think we're in a good spot here. Like I said, look out for ongoing episodes, and if there's any way I can rope in alumni going forward, I will reach out to y'all. So thank you so much, and thank you, Shaheen, for joining us and hearing our conversation here. Your presence is very appreciated.
And sorry I was late. It was a dog emergency. So I just came from the vet, but I'm gonna watch the video.
Yeah, so we'll get that logged into YouTube or uploaded to YouTube as soon as we can. Okay. All right. Take care, y'all. Have a great weekend, and yeah, look forward to inviting you to the next episode.
Bye, everyone. Thank you so much.
Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.